as you get closer to the monument, you look up to the ceiling and see a shadow form. Hey guys, Rob from Epic Dungeon Tiles again. Thought I'd share with you the craft I made, which is pretty cool. You might have seen it on the Facebook group already. Yeah, I did it for Halloween because there's loads of cheap, crap plastic creatures and insects about, which once you paint them, they look really cool. So here it is. This is the Cursed Bug Monument, or Tower, or Pillar, whatever I've been calling it. It is a monument in the game that the adventurers are trying to find. When they find it, they notice that it's covered in bugs and kind of this horrible purple goo, and it just stinks everywhere. And originally it's supposed to be kind of a clean gold monument that they were looking for. Here it is. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully that's in focus. And effectively we've got some really cool features to this. So there's a bit of space where people can sort of get in and stand on things down the bottom. But because I've curved these, it means only the insects can get to the top unless the adventurers have got, they've got fly or things like that. And all these eggs are kind of going to create a lair action, which the players found out. And effectively the Spider Queen can kind of crack open one of these eggs, if you like, and create more creatures that'll start attacking the party. And that would just periodically happen over the course of the battle. Another cool thing is this, which I can swap in and out, which is just a little bit of plastic with some black paint on, and it creates the shadow on the ceiling. It only really works in dark light because it is a cheap like torch thing that I'm using. But you can, I'll show you in the tutorial anyway. You can check that out. And there's the torch switch in there. I'll probably paint it a bit because you can still see some of the orange, but it looks pretty cool. And yeah, hope you enjoy the craft, and I'll show you how I did it.
Okay, so in this craft I'm going to be using this Projector Torch from Tesco. It's a supermarket in the UK, and it worked really well. It kind of is really cheap, so it's not going to create a really clear detail on the ceiling, but the idea is to show the shadow of the boss on the ceiling. And also I'm going to be using these little plastic tokens, like creatures, sorry, and they again are from Tesco, and yeah, they're really useful, really cool. I might do something with the plastic skeletons and the frogs and stuff like that in the future as well, so really cool. Okay, so I first start off making a Mdf base for the tower, and you can just draw this and cut this out with a sharp X-Acto knife. I tend to just cut the edges because I'm going to bevel the edges anyway. I tend to just cut them and then snap them off. You can see that sort of in the video. I sped it up a little bit because you don't want to just watch me cut an Mdf base out. I've also got a little bit of a weird blade in here. I've ordered some new blades, but I've got one which has got like the bit on the end, which is actually really good for beveling the edge, but cutting it is a little bit annoying. So yeah, I just keep cutting this, and then I shape it so that you can't see the kind of square shape to it. I really like using MDF because I found them really cheap on Amazon, and yeah, you can just cut them out with an X-Acto knife or whatever, bevel the edge. You end up with a really nice solid base. I do have a saw to do this as well, but generally speaking it's so quick to just do it with a blade. I just quickly get the blade out instead. No, just smooth off any of those rough sort of like edges. Okay, then I'd sort of mark the centre of the little torch thing that we're going to be using. And then this is the kind of first structure, so you want to cut 3 sections of this, so 4 centimeters by 14 centimeters, and then we'll glue them together into a triangle. You can see I've marked it out. I marked it a little bit big to begin with on the Mdf base, but you can mark this out, glue it together, and then once you've glued it together you can just stick it on. Just sped this up a little bit because no one wants to watch me just measuring things, even though I've still left it in there. These scissors as well, I had some like just, you know, fine scissors for ages. These scissors are so good. It's one of those things that you don't notice, but when you're cutting for a long period of time it just kind of fades away and you realise how good they are. Okay, bit of hot glue. Just line them up. I'll just put a little bit down the bottom so I can get that straight, and then I'll put some all the way up. Yep, still fits. So now you need to cut out this section so that the switch can move up and down. So you can see there. Effectively just glued this on, glued on the triangle, and now I'm finding out the size of the torch, so I just wrap a piece of wire around it, and that's the exact size of the torch at the top, not at the bottom, because it goes out slightly wider, so that's why I had to do that. And there it is. And then what I've done here is I've just marked it underneath so that I can cut it off. In hindsight, I may have made this a little bit bigger, which is I've increased the measurements for it as well. In the measurements I've given you, it's just so it's a little bit bigger because these edges came out really close to the line. So they, one of them, even though I cut one of them off, so it doesn't matter as much. This still would have been nice to just make it a little bit wider so that it was a bit more comfortable in there. Then just pop that on top. And then you'll just need to cut the section out where we cut that little channel for the switch. And then we have our torch container. Pretty cool. One other thing I did after, which I've not shown, is I drilled a small hole in the bottom of the base, because when this torch goes in it fits quite sort of tight, so you can just push that from underneath to get it back out. Fits nice. Now it's time for the fun part. I just mark where the switch is here in case I want to cover some of that up. I don't think I end up covering it, but it would have been a good idea just to have something that kind of obscures that channel a bit. But no one even noticed, so... And then I cut out these sections basically for the kind of spikes or edges that work their way up the monument. And just slightly curve them so that they've got a really cool looking point on them. And I do that on all of these. So I'm not doing a straight line, I'm just drawing a curved line so that it just looks a bit more interesting. Now do the same down the little sides, just slightly curved, but it's a little bit harder because they're shorter. So I'm basically going to be cutting those two lines, and you'll see now they're a little bit difficult to cut because of the way they get really thin towards the end. But as long as you kind of go back and forth with the knife quite a lot and don't try and just slice straight through it, and make sure you've got a sharp blade. I didn't have a sharp blade, which was a little bit annoying. So I keep those other bits as well because we're going to add them as spikes. The bits I've just cut off. Just put them to one side. And there, we're going to cut 8, I think. 8 of these. One thing I do with these is I take a few of them, a few with like the corner bits broken off, and then I cut them in half. And then you can see I'm putting them at the bottom of the tower or monument. And to glue this foam on, all I'm doing is I'm putting a blob of hot glue right in the middle, and then around the outside PVA glue. I find that's a really quick and easy way of just getting it to stick. Hot glue tends to grab it a little bit, but over time, like the PVA glue will hold it a lot better. You can see I've got the 3. Sorry, it's a little bit out of frame, but I've got the 3 sort of spikes at the bottom, and then I've just glued. But all I've done is I've just glued those all the way up, leaving a gap for the switch. And then those bits we saved, I'm just cutting off, making them thinner and cutting off the corners. Then just slicing them a little bit so they look like kind of claws coming out of the ground. These are supposed to not be part of the monument, they're supposed to be part of kind of the bug infestation, like a giant like claw or spikes coming out of the ground. They look really cool actually, I really like them. And there, I've just basically glued them around the outside of the Mdf base. And then it's time to cover it in basically any black paint I've got, small rocks, thick PVA glue or Mod Podge, and I just chuck everything in there and lay it on really thick, because when it dries it's going to create a really nice crust, and it also fills in any gaps that you've got. So I got these cool little plastic creatures from Tesco. I basically separate them out, and I've got like scorpions and flies and spiders, ants and centipedes. I basically glue them all on the outside. The reason I glue them on after this is because I want to keep the detail on them, and that stuff that I painted on before is quite thick. It creates like a really nice texture, but I don't want that texture going on the sort of miniature creatures. And here I'm just cutting up one of the centipedes so that they kind of don't all just look like the same long ones. So I'm gluing this one in here, and then what I'll do is I'll cut down the other piece of it and then line it up, and then you've got like a small one, and then I think I glue on a couple of the longer ones just as they are, and then I put a bit on the end so you can glue on the other piece once I've cut that down. I thought this super glue would be really good, like really strong, because I used Gorilla Glue in the past and it's amazing, but I had trouble with it. I don't know, I think I'll go back to the one I used before. This is like the gel super glue, but I prefer the other one. In the end, most of the creatures, what I ended up doing, actually, because I was going to cover it in quite a lot more paint, you can see there I've kind of joined it together, and because I was going to cover it in a lot more paint, I was just going to hot glue them on. Okay, so this is an annoying bit. I lost all the video for it, but effectively what I've done now is I've carved a piece of foam in this sort of rough shape, so it's got a hole through the middle of it and it's like an oval. And you can see that where all the beads are. And then I've selected loads of round beads and glued them onto the outside of that. But I cover the base with some more sand, and then I glue on all these round beads, paint it all black. And then I paint this purple colour on. And this purple colour just looks awesome. Like, it's really cheap craft paint, but it worked really well. And then for the eggs, I give it a base coat of white just to try and hide some of that black. Here I've added light purple highlights just on the edges of some of the things. And then this is that tan colour. It's a little bit more expensive paint, like sort of better quality. So I use that just to sort of finish that off, really. And then this is the sort of final bit where I've painted in the miniatures. You can see they look really good. Turned out really well. And the final thing I did was create this little plastic piece that I can put on top of the projector torch, and that worked really well. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
And look, like, do it slower and like actually look like you're looking at someone over here and then someone...
What? No, I can't look over here because I can see the wall. I'm gonna be like, what do you do? So Josh, what do you do? So Josh, what do you do? James, do you wish to add anything to that? Okay, cool.
Oh god, okay.
Can you stop?